Welcome back and thank you very much for staying with us. You're still watching Politics Tonight, digging beyond the headlines. And now to our interview with the guest of the day. I am joined by the former spokesman of the Nigerian Air Force and Defense, security and counterterrorism expert, retired Group Captain Sadiq Shehu, for discussion on the raging debate on amnesty for bandits in Nigeria. Thank you very much for joining us this evening, Captain.
Thank you very much for having me.
So let's begin with the new service chiefs who have just been confirmed by the Senate. How will you describe their appointments?
Well, I have commented on the new service chiefs. Like I said in earlier comments I made, when you are rating officers, you rate them among their contemporaries or among their peers. Officers have different peers, different courses in which they graduated. And it is only when you are looking at the peers from which these people are picked that you can be able to rate whether it's a good choice or bad choice. Now, based on their antecedent and their relative seniority among their peers, each of the four, that is the CDS and the three services that was picked, they are stars within their own mates. So as far as President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has decided to pick his service chiefs within that rank and seniority bracket, he has probably picked, if not the best, among the best in those seats. And not only academically, but even performance-wise, these are some officers that I know, basically when I was in the military, and also some of them I have come across them while I was in the military as a trainer or as an instructor in Jaji. I can accept that they are of good quality. And even out of the classroom, each one of them has come up with a reputation for field performance. So as far as their background is concerned, they are equipped to improve or to continue on the trajectory left by their predecessors. We expect much from them. All I can say is that I wish them luck, and I wish the federal government will give them all the support they required. On their turn, we expect them to put their best. I will also call on them to speak honestly and frankly to the political masters, because sometimes it is the communication between the security agencies and the political masters that is not done honestly. And if it is not done honestly, the political master may have unrealistic expectations of what the armed forces could do if he does not know their gaps, their weaknesses, their needs, and their strengths. So I expect a very honest conversation between the service chiefs and the political masters, who it is the political masters that will get them all the wherewithal they need to win the insurgency and other security challenges that are facing the country.
So how confident are you about their ability to tackle security challenges facing the country?
Well, like I said, you can only, they can say past performance is a prediction of future performance. Like I said, from what I know of them, if you talk of Major General Christopher Musa Gwabin, who has served at the Northeast Operation Haɗin Kai or Zaman Lafiya in the Northeast counterinsurgency operation, as an analyst who keep record of number of attacks carried by Boko Haram, number of soldiers killed, number of insurgents killed. In all these indices, the tenure of Christopher Musa Gwabin as the commander, as the theater commander, has shown that all these numbers went down. And based on that, we have the lowest number of attacks by Boko Haram during his tenure. We have large number of Boko Haram surrendering. Surrender can only come as a result of pressure mounted by experience. So you see, for Christopher Musa Gwabin, who is the Chief of Defense Staff, like I said, he has acquitted himself very well in the last positions he held in the theater before he was transferred to the Infantry Center and School. For the Chief of Army Staff, Lagbaja, personally also, I know that when the operation in Kaduna, for example, was flagging down against the bandits, Lagbaja was called in, and I'm not the only person that will pay testimony. Within weeks of his arrival, he showed the results on the ground. People in Kaduna can testify. He has a fearless reputation. He has his own unique way of getting the best out of his soldiers, even in the most austere of circumstances. So he showed that in Kaduna, and it is that trajectory that I expect him to, even before Kaduna, he had a reputation in the southeast, where he was a GOC before he moved to Kaduna, when the operations was flagging down, and immediate changes were seen in the result on the field. So he too is a good choice. Then we move to the Chief of Naval Staff. The Chief of Naval Staff, right from when he was, at the Nigerian Military School, he has been a top performer. Well, unlike the Chief of Army Staff and the Chief of Defense Staff, he has not had a stint at a senior command experience. However, his performance in courses, his performance in other employments he has done, he has left a very good mark. This, I must say, is his first major command. But then, when you ask his mates, when you rate him among his mates, you expect him also to excel. Then the Chief of the Air Staff, Air Vice Marshal Hassan Abubakar, also I always liken him like a soldier scholar. What do I mean? He's somebody who is ambidextrous. He is good in the academic theoretical side of the military operation, and he is also good in the actual practical application of theory. He's despite being a pilot, despite having excelled in several operations, this is an officer who took time to even train himself as a paratrooper. When you see an officer going out of, which is not in far required of his calling. Being a pilot, he could have stayed in his comfort zone, but he took time to go and train as a paratrooper. So I see him also as an equally very good pick for the Chief of Air Staff position. So it is based on this and the fact that some of them has passed through my tutelage while I was in the Nigerian Armed Forces as an instructor in Jaji. I have seen them up close and personal, and I can say if they live up to expectations, if they live up their past reputation, I am sure they will make a success with the proviso that the executive branch and the legislative branch give them all that they require, and also with the proviso, they are not shy about saying what they need, what they lack, so that the political masters will help them out.
All right, Captain. So having spoken so highly of these men, what would you advise them to focus more on towards keeping Nigeria safer?
Well, it is the normal litany of reminding them. Just like I had the president himself in his first meeting with them, we spoke. Whether it is a perception or a reality, there is a perception that the security forces sometimes they don't operate as one. There must have been an improvement, but still that persistence for call. The modern operation now is a combined joint operation. Joint operation in that the air component, the ground component, and the naval component, if necessary, they have to work in concert. Each has its own, area of strength and area of responsibility, but it is the combination of all these attributes that will bring success to the field. So I expect them to team up, and where there are any wrinkles, as people are complaining, even the president has told them that, we expect them to sew those wrinkles and work in harmony under the tutelage of the Chief of Defense Staff, who is supposed to be like the first among equals among the service chiefs. So this is what I would tell them. And I would also tell them to also, some of the operations they are doing, they are operations that are not only the province of the armed forces. There are other security agencies, like the police, like the civil defense, like the intelligence agencies, DSS. I also want them to see that connection, that inter-service cooperation and coordination. They should bring it to bear so that they get the success that is required to rid us of the security challenges we are having in the country.
All right. So we've witnessed a reduction in the activities of insurgents in the Northeast. What is responsible for the progress in the Northeast?
Sorry, I didn't get your question properly.
All right. We've witnessed a reduction in the activities of insurgents in the Northeast. What do you think is responsible for the progress?
Well, it's, when security forces, when you have a very proactive commander, when you have a commander that can, within even difficult challenges, he can push his men, officers and men, to greater performance. That is the difference. But you also have the difference in cooperation. In the modern concept of operation now, we talk of eyes in the sky, boots on the ground, ears in the market. What do I mean here? You have to have people on the ground that are moving. You have to have the Air Force in the air doing reconnaissance and giving intelligence. You have to have people in the marketplaces, in mosques, in churches, as the case may be, that will bring information of every opportunity that is happening or some mischief that is implanted within the community. When you have that, and you also have, support from the political masters, which is also very, very important. And political masters here, both the executive, they have a role to play. The legislature, they have a role to play. When you give the troops what they need, certainly you are going to get, you are going to get results. But then the personality of the commander will always come to the fore. A good commander will bring, the best out. Even if the poor troops, when they lack some things, he can make up for those gaps by his sheer personality, by showing empathy with the troops, and by looking after their welfare. So I think this is the success. This is some of the key of the success we saw in the Southeast. And for the past, what we have seen is not allowing Boko Haram to launch, but rather going after them, putting them on the defensive, putting them on the back foot. That is what we call a relentless pursuit. Instead of waiting for them to attack and then you repel, no, you put them on relentless pursuit. That is what will be the difference between success and defeat.
So let's turn to the North Central, where big problems remain. What can we do at this stage, Captain?
Thank you very much. Again, conversely, in as much as we have seen empirical evidence of massive improvement in the Northeast, I wish I could say the same for the problem in the Northwest and the North Central of banditry, kidnapping, cattle rustling, and the rest and the rest. Unfortunately, it is not so. But the reason is not far-fetched. During the last presidential election, which I followed diligently, especially where it concerns security, to hear what the different political parties and the contestants wanted to say, one thing was very clear. If we play back all the campaigning, electoral campaigning, almost all the political parties, almost all the presidential candidates were unanimous on one thing. The number of troops we have, that is military, the number of police we have is inadequate. When you look at the expanse of land in Nigeria, when you look at our population, when you look at the current security situations we have a full-blown counterinsurgency, we have other lower engagement, banditry, kidnapping, IPOB, ESN. We are having, I would say, almost 4 or 5 conflicts of different natures happening at once. And you're having an armed forces of less than 250,000, all strength. And you are having a police that is about 350 or 400,000 plus the other security agencies. Definitely, the number is not sufficient. And I think not only me as a security expert, even the political masters, all the presidential aspirants, they agreed on that number. So you can see if it is the same number of troops you are using for the Northeast, it's the same number. In fact, when you interview some of our soldiers and officers, it's the same officer that served in the Northeast. He takes a little rest, if at all, then he is taken to Zamfara or to Katsina or to Kaduna to continue the fight. It's the same thing with the soldier. So the truth is that we are overstretched as far as the numbers is concerned. The only question you would ask is that we have been talking about this overstretch since 2011 or 2010 when the insurgency started, which was later joined by the banditry and the other thing. And when you look at indices, there are publications that always rate countries about the number of manpower they have, number of able-bodied men and women that are ready, especially where we have teeming number of youths that are willing to look for work and are willing to work for the country in the security agencies. You will wonder why all these years we did not do an elaborate and sustained recruitment exercise. We have not done up till today. Agreed. The outgoing government, I think through the last days, President Muhammad Buhari spoke about adding about 60,000 number of personnel. Appreciable, but not enough. It is not enough. If we go back to our history, when we started the Civil War, what made the Civil War to end quickly, apart from other tactics, is the massive recruitment that was done. The Nigerian army started the Civil War with only about one division. When you say one division, you are talking about, just one division. But by the time, massive recruitment, the numbers have risen to over 250,000 soldiers. So this is a war of civil war where we did this, So you wonder why with the teeming number, we have a larger population than we had in the Civil War. Why are we not recruiting? 60,000 addition is not enough. You know, no matter whether you have technology, no matter whether you have equipment, you know, the issue of boots on the ground will always be very important in military operations. We do not have enough boots on the ground. So if it is the same troops that are using in the northeast, if it flags down, you move them to the northwest. Even in the northwest is the troops that you are using in Zamfara. When it cools down, you take them to Katsina. When it cools down, you move them to Kaduna. Then definitely there will be fatigue of those soldiers, and the asymmetric threats we are facing. These bandits, they are very mobile. They are very nimble. They could move from the area that you captured and then to another area. Then when you leave, they come back the area. So in fact, when you look at our chronology of some of the operations that are happening, because of lack of numbers, they may call one town X. I'm calling town X. You'll find that today, the insurgents have captured town X. Soldiers come and lodge and dislodge the insurgents from town X. Those soldiers that are in town X, there's another attack in town Y. They move to town Y. The bandits come back to town X. So this is what we are having. Especially when you are talking of the banditry. You see, the banditry have expanse of land, forested areas that is unregulated. So when they move in here, when they move in there, especially during rainy seasons, they are almost unreachable by our troops who are moving either by hillocks or some other conventional means of transport. They are not accessible, and they can stay there. And for you to really, get an upper hand over these bandits, you need boots on the ground. I agree. People talk about, intelligence, or they talk of technology. All this will facilitate your work. But in counterinsurgency, in dealing with bandits, you have to understand that. I always give this example. If you have, let's take Gombe, for example. Let's say there are 15 million, I'm just making an estimate, 15 million people in Gombe. If you have insurgents, just 30 coming from the north, 30 coming from the east, 30 coming from the west, 30 coming from the south at one time, and shooting sporadically, they will dislodge that town of 15 million people. They will make people to run away. They will create IDPs. They will make people to live their livelihoods. And for the insurgent or for the bandit, that is victory. If, on the other hand, a proportional military force or even a police force wants to go and restore order over that 15 million, now I'm talking of 30 here, probably 120. You are not going with 120 soldiers. You are not going with 240. You are not going with 200. You are not going for 300. You probably need about 500 to 600 soldiers to return peace, to make the people feel safe and remain there. So this is sometimes the advantage that the insurgent or the irregular fighter has over a regular force. He needs only few numbers to cause mayhem. Whereas for you as a professional, for you to make, because you don't win as long as people are running, as long as people are not farming, as long as people are afraid to remain, you as the government soldier, you have not won. This, irregular fight is sometimes not even about capturing terrain. No, it is about instilling confidence in the people who are there. So that is why I always challenge people who say that how many are the bandits or how many are the Boko Haram. Out of proportion of their number, an insurgent or a bandit can cause havoc, just like I have demonstrated on the attack of a town of 50 million people. So this is the issue. So for this kind of operation we are having, it would have been easier if it is Nigerian armed forces versus another country's armed forces. Here we even have a simple formula. They say if you are attacking, you go 3 times the number of the person that is defending. That is what tactics says. But in the insurgency or an irregular warfare, those numbers, you need more and more of that. Because your success depends on, we don't have IDPs, we don't have people running away, people are going to their farms, people are not being taxed by non-state actors. This is when you have peace. And you can only have that, level of confidence when the people, the neighborhood, they know there are 15 soldiers in this primary school nearby, within 5 minutes shout. Or if I shout, there is a garrison by the Sarki's house. That is what will bring confidence. So it is this number. So the point I am making, we need to increase the number. And I spoke at the beginning about honest conversation between the service chiefs or even all security agencies and the political masters. As the service chief, as the CDS, as the chief of air, chief of army, chief of naval staff, it is not you that will bring money and look for troops. When you sit with the political masters, it may not be an open discussion because we might bring issues of it is a secret this thing. When you sit with the political masters, either in the presidency, either with the Minister of Defense, Minister of Interior, or with the legislators that carry them now in a room, and we saw a covert kind of procedure. Tell them honestly, for me to secure Zamfara, Kebbi, Sokoto, and Kaduna, this is the number of troops I have now. If you want me to make short work of it, I will need troops of this number. I will need vehicles of this number. I will need helicopters of this number. Tell them, you are not a politician. You are a professional. This is what is done in other armed forces. But unfortunately, again, as a former military officer, I must say, every military has its own tradition. There are traditions that are good and there are traditions that are bad. The tradition we have in the Nigerian military, from the officers to the soldier, they are very resilient and very conservative and people that can suffer in silence. The tradition we work up in the armed forces is if you need 10 men, if they say go and capture the place, you have 2 men, you say, yes, sir, you go. It is not so in maybe European armed forces. The man will sit down and tell the political master, okay, capture, secure Zamfara State. Secure Zamfara State. I have 5,000 troops. And from my analysis, I need 15,000 troops. So please, I need 15,000.
All right. So Captain, so taking into cognizance...
But if you don't do that conversation, yes.
All right. So taking into cognizance all of this you have mentioned, what would you describe as the biggest security threats facing Nigeria currently? And is terrorism fading away, giving way to banditry?
Sorry, please, if you could raise your voice. I'm not hearing you very well.
All right, so I'm saying that what would you describe as the biggest security threat facing Nigeria currently? And I also asked, is terrorism fading away, giving way to banditry?
Well, again, biggest threat. Now, in the modern conception of security, there are threats of various kinds that will affect a country. Sometimes we tend to lose sight and only look at the kind of physical threats or threats to physical security, like the bandits and the Boko Haram or the ISIS, as the case may be. But in modern perception of security, there are even threats of food security. Food insecurity is another threat. Bulging youths is another insecurity. Lack of employment for our youth is another insecurity. Even the divisiveness along religious and ethnic lines is also a threat. So, to be honest, if you ask me to pick which one of the threats is that, I think they are interlinked, and I could not rate one above the other. But what is clear is that we always put emphasis on the threats to physical security, like people attacking. But what I'm saying, even at the root cause of these threats, you will find that we have these bulging youths, lack of unemployment, all those kind of things, divisions along ethnic religious lines, they may form part of these threats. So this is what I have to say. The other side of the question was, sorry, please, I lost what you said on the other side of the question.
So I said, is terrorism fading away? Is terrorism fading away?
Terrorism is fading and banditry is coming. Yes. To be honest, again, what we are seeing over the years, before we could cleanly separate banditry and insurgency. We used to relate that insurgency is as a result of ideological grievance. Some people believe they have one form of Islamic religion which they want to bring in, which they think the other people that are following on the other side, they are not right. They want their own caliphate. That is what we call insurgency. It is normally insurgency is almost a political or ideological struggle against the government. Whereas banditry, in its purest form, is just criminality. There is nothing ideological about it. There's nothing religious about it. It's just criminality of people wanting easy money to live easy life. But along the line, we are having, a criminal enterprise or an amalgam of the two, because they found whereas the insurgent is fighting along either a misguided ideology religiously or politically, the bandit is in it for the money and only for the money, for easy life. But they found, commonality in coming together, such that so much now, if you come to the places of Zamfara, Sokoto, and the Northwest, we are having, this amalgam of these two forces, where they are joining. Each of them maintains his stand. A bandit does not believe that he is an insurgent, whereas an insurgent also does not. In fact, I think maybe there's even a hierarchy of levels of identity. I want to believe that an insurgent will feel that he's even a better human being than a bandit who is in it only for the money. Whereas he is thinking that he's fighting for an ideology. But along the way, they find that what is their common enemy? The common enemy is the state, is the federal forces, be they military, be they police. So sometimes they exchange tactics, sometimes they exchange information. Exchange of tactics, you can see, before the bandits we know, they do not have, they do not have the tactics of manufacturing IEDs or explosives. And even the kind of weapons they are having before, they used to be rudimentary, even if it is rifles, it used to be homemade rifles. But with their alliance with some of the elements in the insurgency side who are more advanced than them, they have now we hear cases of IED even in hinterlands like Kaduna, like Katsina, like Niger State. We have incidents of IEDs going up. This is as a result of their mix with the insurgents. It's insurgents that have those tactics.
All right.
So I will not, it is very difficult to say, if you confine it to the Northeast, like every indices, and when I talk of indices, I have to tell you, me as a security analyst, honest, when I'm analyzing things, I do not rely solely on government figures. I will take government figures because I have to take government figures or government forces figures, but at the same time, I have to cross-reference them with other sources that are independent, who may not have an interest. I'm a military man. If you ask me as a military man, I would like to exaggerate my successes and minimize my losses, wherever it is. So I know that. So with that at the back of my mind, I counterimpose. So whichever this thing you take, you find that in the North, certainly things are far, far calmer than 2013, 2014, 2015, 2016, up to this. Everything is going downwards. However, as pressure is being mounted there, and again, with, of course, where water goes to where there is less pressure. As pressure is mounting there, it is possible these insurgents will move here. Is it Ansar? Is it ISWAP? Is it Boko Haram? They move here. Some of the attacks we are saying in the Northeast, it is insurgents. So it is possible they have found a collaborative arrangement with the insurgents, so much so that now it is very difficult to separate some of the attacks that are purely bandits and some of the attacks that are purely insurgents. This is what we are having.
All right, sir.
So,
all right, sir. So
insurgency, yes, in the Northeast, it has really subsided. But then we are seeing elements of up to as far as Kogi State, we are seeing insurgency.
All right, Group Captain, let's take a break. I've been speaking with the former spokesman of the Nigerian Air Force, retired Group Captain Sadiq Shehu. Tonight, we focus on the raging debate over amnesty for bandits in Nigeria. Let's take a break, and this conversation will continue. Please stay with us.